And another article I wanted to make as the basis of our conversation is an article on the BBC by Jeremy Bowen, and that's a nearly 5,000 word long article titled "Israel is accused of the gravest war crimes." It's quite a compelling read, I would say, and many are saying that this is by far the best investigative reporting by the BBC. But I guess if you have a history of repeating Israeli talking points and serving as an agent for Israel over the past 20 months in his propaganda efforts, I don't think it was very difficult to do. But Jeremy Bowen, I guess, does it really, really well. He begins by talking about the fog of war, how this was purposefully manufactured by Israel, and then goes on to speak with a number of officials, academics, and lawyers to show exactly what is happening behind the fog of war. And many, of course, concluded that it is genocide. So what stood out for you in this article? Because for me, I thought it was a really gripping read.
Yes, it was, and just to be clear, Jeremy Bowen is a very serious journalist with a long record of service in the Middle East as well. People may remember his on-site reporting from the American bombing of the Al Amiriya shelter in Baghdad in 1991 during the Kuwait War. And many other outstanding reports. But it's quite clear that he and many of his colleagues, um, certainly since October 2023, have been thoroughly muzzled by BBC management, which has decided that its journalistic mission is to make the world safe for genocide. And there have been all kinds of reports of dissension within BBC ranks and so on. Um, so here it seems Bowen has been permitted to do what he does best, which is serious journalism. And he's produced, as you said, a very compelling report. It's available on the BBC website, and I would encourage everyone to read it. The only additional comment I would make, in addition to what you said about the report, is that the headline says something along the lines of governments will have something to answer for many years. I think, it was a reference to Western governments and their tacit or active support for Israel, and that it will come back to haunt them. That's certainly true, but that applies, I would argue, at least as much to BBC management, which has played such a shameful role during the past year and has willfully and recklessly trashed the BBC's, once unparalleled reputation in the service of Israeli genocide, not even in the service of a British of a British war or policy, even though, of course, Britain is directly complicit, and the BBC has chosen to report very little about that, but in the service of a foreign power. The vast majority of British public opposes, and so on. It's really, the ease with which BBC management has thrown their organization's reputation into the dustbin, and the ease with which they have been allowed to do so is really shameful, I think.
And what I found really interesting are the sections where Bowen appears to be debunking BBC's own propaganda lines and
Yes.
Israeli talking points. So in one section, for example, we've seen over the past 20 months where every time the BBC mentions casualty figures, death figures, it says Hamas controlled Gaza Health Ministry, blah, blah, blah. But he goes on to say that these figures have always been reliable. And if anything, Hamas undercounts the death toll. This is what he's saying. And then he references the Lancet figure, which indicates that more than 180,000 could potentially have died as a result. So I like those sections. And also when it comes to genocide, of course, the BBC will not admit to anything like that. But he cites Holocaust survivors like Professor Blackman, who says that Israeli politicians have for many years used the memory of the Holocaust as a tool to attack governments and public opinion in the world, and warned them that accusing Israel of any atrocities towards the Palestinians is anti-Semitism. So he's really bringing in powerful individual, powerful quotes, and debunking the BBC's own propaganda lines and Israeli talking points. I find that to be really refreshing.